How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Perfect Reload Weekly, where we take a look back at the week in video game news. My name is Steve, and I am joined, as always, unfortunately, he made it into the new year, Christian Slater. Christian, how you doing, man? How are you? You weren't here last week because we did the year in preview, but you are back to the new moonbase for 2024. How's it going?
Well, how nice of you to invite me back. I rang in the New Year's by myself.
No, you
so alone, so sad, so cold. No one loves me. Also, this new moon base sucks. I feel like I'm smaller.
You were not alone on New Year's. You passed out on the couch at about 9 p.m. and you stayed there for 3 days. So, cool. Maybe you're a tad smaller. I don't know. Maybe someone squished you down a little bit. But yeah, we are back to normal here. Last week, we did the year in preview because there wasn't a lot of news going around. And to be honest, it's still a slow start to the year. Not too much news, but enough to put forward kind of a regular show. I didn't have a ton of time to play games this week, but we will talk about a couple of things. I started my new job, so doing a lot of training, a lot of kind of just long hours doing stuff. I have an incredibly busy week coming up this week. A lot of classes I have to take, and all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, it's just been a little bit busy, but time was made for games. And I guess we'll start. I probably am not going to talk about this every week because it's been kind of an ongoing saga of me playing the game a ton and then just dropping off entirely and not having it done or not having enough played to really factor it into to Game of the Year stuff, and then kind of putting it off. But I finally got around to spending some time with Baldur's Gate 3. I decided to I think I mentioned this before, but I decided to just start fresh because I had my save from when the game, initially came out, which is, several hours in. I made a bunch of decisions already and was well on my way into quests and all that kind of stuff. But I had stopped playing the game for so long that when I picked that save back up, I just didn't remember what I was doing, where to go, kind of what I was in the middle of and all that. So I was like, you know what, let's just start fresh. And that's what I did, and I think that was probably the better choice. Playing a different class. Playing a class I never would typically play. I'm playing a druid. I have yet to do really anything animal related, because I've only gotten a little ways in to the game. I'm not up to where I was in the previous save. But I'm digging it. I typically, in any type of like fantasy type game that has classes or roles or whatever, I typically play like a wizard or a sorcerer or something like that. Even though they're not the same kind of game, but they are similar enough. And something like Diablo, I'm usually like a ranged, just fire my spells kind of thing. But I figure I'd try something different, with the druid stuff. I'm curious to see how Baldur's Gate does it. But I've always kind of wanted to mess around with like a class where you can control things or maybe shapeshift or something like that. I'm not quite sure what the full range of spells and abilities will be, but we'll check it out. And I know that there's also a way to I think you can totally respec. I don't know if you can change your class. I could be wrong on that. But I guess, we could always mess around with it. It's not that big of a deal. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. And then the other big change I made was, so I had mentioned this a few months ago on the show, that I had built a lap board. And if you're not familiar with a lap board is, it's a structure that holds a mouse and a keyboard, and you place it on your lap, and you're using that typically when you're sitting on a couch or something, to that effect, maybe a recliner or something, and you're playing PC games on your TV. I'd gone through all the hoops, which actually wasn't that bad. There's plenty of tutorials out there how to do it, to get my PC to I can access my PC from the television in the living room. It essentially just acts as another monitor. Even though it's wireless, there's no direct connection between the PC and the TV. Because even though, on the other side of this wall is the living room, I didn't want to run cables through it. Actually, the way the house is laid out, I have to run cables through the ceiling and drop them down, and I just didn't want to do that. So I got that all set up, and It's been fine playing stuff with a mouse and keyboard. I mentioned last week, I think, that I was playing a bunch of like Civilization 5 and all that's totally fine with mouse and keyboard. But I just kind of wanted to mess around with Baldur's Gate 3 with a controller. So actually, one of the things that's kind of been putting me off from playing more PC games in my living room is your standard. I got it sitting right here. I use just a standard Xbox. The green screen's messing with it. I use just a standard Xbox Series X controller for PC gaming, and it was dropping signal constantly from the Bluetooth, even though it's not that far away. It's maybe, the signal has to travel through a wall, I guess, but only maybe 12 feet, if that, from the back of the PC going through the wall to where the couch is on the other side. And it was just dropping constantly. Like every 30 seconds it would drop signal. And so that was kind of really putting me off from doing it. I had switched over to using, I don't have it next to me, but one of the 8-bit Do Pro controllers. And that was fine, but that doesn't have all the bells and whistles. I think they have a version that does, but it doesn't have vibration. Vibration isn't an end all be all kind of thing. But it doesn't have that, and it is, it doesn't have the weight of an Xbox Series X controller or a PS5 controller. I just prefer an Xbox controller. To me, the Xbox controller is pretty much perfect. I like the offset sticks. I just like the way it feels in my hands. I have slightly smaller hands, and I always feel like it's just, it's just very comfortable to hold on to. And so I saw online that there was an Xbox, like an official Microsoft product that was a wireless adapter. So instead of having to use Bluetooth, you could just use a wireless connection. But apparently they're discontinued. They weren't in stock anywhere that I can find. Amazon had them in stock, but they were all from like third-party platforms, or Amazon had some in stock that were very expensive to the point where it was just like, is this actually like a legit one? Because from what I can tell, I went on eBay to see if maybe I could just find someone selling one on eBay, and it's not like they're crazy expensive, but they were like in the $30 to $50 range, and I was like, I just don't think that these are legit, especially because a lot of them were like, these are brand new, just without the original packaging. And a lot of times it's just like, these are AliExpress knockoffs, and they look the same because they have an Xbox logo, but they're not legit. And so I kept kind of doing some research, and then I found out about this little thing. Hopefully the camera will pick it up. This is another wonderful product by the people over at 8-bit Do. This is the USB wireless adapter 2. Specifically, you want to get the 2 because the 1 does not work with Series X controllers. And this was like really cheap, and I've always had really good luck with 8-bit Do stuff. I have one of their Pro controllers, I have their keyboard, and I have one of their fight sticks. And this thing, I plugged it in and did not drop connection at all with an Xbox controller. It's perfectly fine. You just pair it. It's very easy. There's a button on the USB dongle, and simple. Very, very easy, and it's been great. And so I've actually spent quite a bit of time playing PC games instead of at my desk, just over in the living room. So I figured, well, let's give Baldur's Gate 3 a shot with controllers. I was really curious how much, because there's so much stuff in Baldur's Gate 3, because it's not just like a game like Diablo where you have your spells. You have a ton of stuff, the ability to jump, push, dip items, all this kind of stuff. You can see it, it looks like a very traditional computer RPG game where you just have all the grid down the bottom with the icons. And when you're running with the PC, obviously it takes all that away because you're not going to use it. I like having the control with the thumbstick. There's a radial menu, and it's actually like a series of sub menus. So you open up them by pressing right bumper, and then you continue to press the right bumper to cycle through, and they kind of have it organized. I'm not sure if as you unlock more things, if you can organize it entirely to your liking, or if they just kind of group like abilities and spells together. It definitely took a little while to get used to. I kept fumbling, pressing the wrong button. I would press right bumper, and then it would go to a different menu, because I was holding it down, so it would just cycle infinitely. And it just took a little while for me to get used to it. But honestly, after playing it, I played the game for an hour this morning again with it. And I think I'm kind of on board with it. I think in a perfect world, mouse and keyboard would be great. Even with having a lap board that I built, that I built to be very light, to not weigh down on me too much. After a while, having a plank of wood and the weight of a keyboard and just, moving around, you kind of start to squirm a little bit on the couch trying to find like a comfortable position. And it was just one of those things where it's like, if I'm going to be playing this game for, larger chunks in a row of time, maybe I should try and to switch over to controller. And I like it. I think it's be fine. And I think it's going to help me get kind of into the game easier, because now I don't have to pull out the board and the keyboard and the mouse and all that stuff. I can just grab the controller, sit down, access the, I use my television's remote control to access the computer, and everything is just up and running and it's just right there. So it's really nice. And I don't, I'm not going to do like daily or weekly updates on my time with Baldur's Gate 3 or anything like that. But, I talked a lot about, I need to get into this game. I need to get into this game. I bought it. I stopped playing it. I really need to get back into it. It has finally happened. I'm back playing, and we'll definitely be spending more time with it over the coming weeks. But yeah, really, really enjoyable. And it's just nice that these kind of third-party products not only work really well, but are affordable. And, I just got it on Amazon. It was delivered the next day. Absolutely fantastic. All right. Let's move on to our first game of the year. Technically, this came out at the end of 2023, the real tail end, but I didn't find out about it until just a few days ago. And I am going to consider it my first game of 2024 because it was done, it was even came out after I had already done my game of the year stuff. So I'm okay with considering it the official first game of the year for me. And that is Buckshot Roulette. I have a video up on the channel that has a full playthrough. The game has a couple different endings depending on how things play out for you. It's a very short experience. I think the runtime of that video is 21 minutes, 22 minutes, something like that. So it's very, very brisk, it's not, it's not going to dominate your time or anything like that, but you can go back in there and mess around with stuff. And it is just a fun game. Like you can just for not having to complete it, you will, but just to go back and mess around with it and see how things turn out for you. But it's a, one-man job from what I can tell. It's a gentleman that had made other very short horror games in the past. This is labeled as a horror game. I could certainly understand why with the subject matter and the visuals and all that stuff, but it's not, there's no like jump scares or anything like that. That's what I was worried about because I don't do well with that kind of stuff. It's just kind of a horror themed game, because it is, it's Russian roulette, and Russian roulette's kind of a brutal concept. But it's just very simple and very well executed. It's well made. There's some AI issues in it. The enemy AI, there were times where the AI knew that there was a loaded round in the gun due to the items and also the items that it had, and also me firing off the last blank. And it still chose to shoot itself than shoot me. So I was like, that kind of took me out a little bit. It's like, no, it should know that to not do that. But other than that, I felt it was pretty fair. It is tough. They really kind of pile it on towards the end. I also, maybe I didn't get so lucky with the items that I got. Or actually not so much the items that I got, but the items that the AI got, because man, they were just like primed to deal a lot of damage. And essentially the basis of the game is you're engaged in a game of Russian roulette. Your first round, you're taking turns, just like real Russian roulette. Although traditionally depicted in movies and television and books, I believe Russian roulette is all blanks in one live round. I believe is the typical version of the game, because it's played typically with a revolver, but this is played with a shotgun, and they are loading a mixture of blanks and live rounds into it. And you are told ahead of time before the round begins how many blanks and how many live rounds there are. And then as the game goes on, you unlock these items. You can get a magnifying glass to check the round that's loaded into the rifle to see like, hey, is this a live or a blank? You can regain health by drinking a beer, smoking a cigarette regains health. You can drink a beer to rack the shotgun and discharge a round, and that can end the round if it's a live round, I believe is what it is. You can saw it off by using a knife, like a serrated blade, to cut off the tip of the shotgun to deal 2 damage instead of 1. So there's a handful of things, and it just becomes this game of strategy. Like, you wouldn't think that there would be so much strategy to it, but you are really kind of having to do a little bit of math in your head of keeping track of those live rounds, like how many are left. Once you play through the game once and you know what the items are, because, when the items start happening, the items that you receive are the only ones that you know what they do. Because if the computer has different items, well, I haven't seen those yet. I don't know what they do. So once you start playing the game a little bit more, you'll have a better idea for the strategy. I was kind of going all in on a lot of stuff. On a second playthrough, I probably would have been a little bit more mindful of that, because I'd understand more of what the opponent had. But I think it's a really cool, unique thing, especially, it is short, but it also doesn't cost very much. I believe it was $1.20. It's available on itch, no Steam release or anything like that. But you can pick it up there for $1.20. I can't remember if it charged me tax or not. If it did, I don't know. I have 8% tax here, so it probably would have been, what is that, $1.09 or 9 cents extra or something like that, or whatever, maybe 10 cents extra. Don't make me do math. But I recommend it. Check out the video on the channel if you're interested in it. But I also just recommend, hey, checking it out on your own, see if it's something kind of up your alley or not. But I think it's cool to see things like this. They're definitely video games. I consider them video games, but I also just kind of consider them just like an interesting activity to do, like an interesting experience. Like, it's a very self-contained, you're going to play through it in one sitting sort of experience. And I really dig stuff like that. It takes place for the most part entirely in one room. It sets a very clear tone, very clear style at the beginning. You can kind of dig deeper into it if you want. There are some clues. There's like stage lights in the background that make you kind of wonder, well, why would there be stage lights? Is this being broadcast? Is this kind of some sick game that people are kind of paying into to watch? How can these people take these shotgun blasts repeatedly and still come back? Stuff like that. There's stuff in the game that we didn't see because I never died entirely in that game. I won't spoil the ending of the video or anything, but during the normal course of the gameplay, I never actually died. There's actually apparently a doctor that shows up that will revive you. I just never saw that when I played, but, yeah, like I said, $1.20, I definitely recommend it. I think it's a pretty solid, outing. So yeah, Buckshot Roulette video's out on the channel now. Like I said, pick it up at itch. And, yeah, Christian, you were hanging out when I was playing that. You got anything to say about it?
Okay, now this game is right up my alley. I've been trying to get an elite Hollywood Russian roulette game going for years. If Joe Manganiello can have his D&D nerd shit, give me this.
Honestly, man, I wouldn't put it past the fact that there is probably some Hollywood elite Russian roulette club where they're watching people kill each other and filming it, and then Charlie Sheen calls the cops or some shit like that. But all right, last up, just kind of my continuing adventures, just playing some older games. I certainly wasn't expecting to play this anytime soon, but I ended up spending quite a bit of time with Grand Theft Auto 4. So Grand Theft Auto 5 is one of my all-time favorite games. I love 4 as well. I think 4 is one of the strongest entries in the franchise. It's just, it's kind of held back by some dated gameplay mechanics. But there was a video that I came across, I want to say it just popped up on Reddit, and it was just like the current state of modding GTA 4, because I know that the PC version was like really bizarre. They ended up like pulling one version of the PC release, and then they put out another one that it's a complete edition that has the 2 single player DLCs that came out with it, and I think that's the only version you can buy now. And it was also like really cheap on the Steam sale. It was like $5 or $4 or something like that. And I was watching this video about modding it, and I was like, oh, it's really easy to mod. It makes the game look nice, and, it's gonna run perfectly fine with the hardware that I have in my PC. I've kind of had Grand Theft Auto on the mind a little bit lately because, we not that far removed from when the trailer for GTA 6 came out, and, they just put GTA 5 back out on, what was it, PlayStation Plus or something like that. So I was just kind of thinking about it. And so I was like, yeah, let me fire up some GTA 4. So I went through and installed some mods. I wish I could remember the names of the mods I got. I know one of them was like restoring the radio stations that got deleted. I installed, it was like Fusion or something like that fixes a lot of graphical stuff. Because some of the like animations and graphic settings on the PC version are like kind of worse than the console version. You would think that it would be the other way around because PCs are, much more powerful. But I installed stuff to make like shadows look nicer and just kind of overall textures look a little bit nicer, and making the draw distance and all that stuff, the viewing distance, just kind of run well. And the game's running at it's above 60 frames a second. So it's running like really, really smooth. I wish there was some type of gameplay mod simply just to make the cars handle better. I remember being a little bit of a defender of that game when it came out, when people were like, man, these things drive like boats. It's terrible. And I was like, it's not that bad. And, when the Lost and Damned DLC came out, they kind of fixed the bike physics, at least, because motorcycles were like unusable in the regular release of that game. But it's been a little while since I played GTA 4. And I got to say, I was definitely very wrong. These cars handle like absolute garbage in this game. So that was the one thing. I haven't spent a lot of time looking it up, but from a cursory search, I couldn't find anything that really fixed the way the cars handled. So I guess it just kind of is what it is. So I'm just kind of getting used to it. But man, GTA 4, as much as I love GTA 5, and I love the characters in GTA 5, it was the first time I had played a GTA game where I wanted those characters to come back and to do a sequel with those actual particular characters. Bring, Michael, Trevor, and wow, God, why am I Franklin? Geez, Franklin. Bring those guys back. But you really realize that even though GTA 5 is a much more modern game, that GTA 4, like Roman and Nico are just kind of written better. They're just like, it's the story is so different. It's much more dramatic. Like the humor is there. Roman is very much comic relief. But I kind of felt like, even though they wanted Franklin, and to a degree Michael, to kind of be the straight man in GTA 5 story, because Trevor was just so far off the wall, like all three of those guys, because they're also like sarcastic and just kind of doom and gloom for their outlook on life. They all are kind of the funny guy in that game a little bit. Everybody is just kind of cranked up to 11 in GTA 5. And I think it works. Like ultimately, like it works. I think it's still a well-written game. But there's just something about 4, I think, just having a more realistic tone to it. When in GTA 5, in the first gameplay that you experience, I think you kill something like 50 people in that big shootout when the bank robbery goes wrong. And in GTA 4, you don't really commit any violence unless you start doing it in between missions. For, 4 missions or so, something like that. You're just kind of driving people around, and you have the early date with Michelle and all that stuff. It's not until you get to the Darden stuff and you stab them to death, and then you have to fight the guys that are beating up Roman and all that stuff. So, it's there, like, still pretty quick. Like, it gets going. Like, within the first hour of the game, you're killing people as part of the main story. But it's a little bit more of a slow drip. And it's, they made it... I think the biggest parallel you can draw is Nico to Michael. Like, Michael was drawn back in to this lifestyle. And in a way, Nico sort of is, although he was like active in it until he got on the boat to come to Liberty City. Nico is very much more like reluctant to continue living like this, but he understands that he just might have to. Whereas Michael, you realize that he didn't want to give it up. Like, he was forced to give it up. And once it starts again, like, you can see that he's like truly alive. Like, he's at his best when all this stuff is happening. Like, he craves the drama and all that. He craves the excitement and the violence. And Nico is kind of more like put off by it. Now, obviously, that's where you run into the problem of ludonarrative dissonance, where Nico could be just a rampaging psychopath in between the missions, and then, you know, in the game, you know, he kind of plays the more reluctant role. But that's just kind of an issue with an open world game like Grand Theft Auto. But yeah, I think it's really just a stark reminder of, like, they really did things differently in that game. More so than any other Grand Theft Auto, I think. It's tough to compare it to Grand Theft Auto 3 because Grand Theft Auto 3 had a silent protagonist. It's a much smaller in scale game than even Vice City or San Andreas was. You know, from both a gameplay perspective and also a narrative perspective. But I think it's one of those things where, you know, I'm not a big fan of remakes and remasters and all that stuff. But man, I would love to just see GTA 4 get ported into GTA 5's engine, even if that's a 10-year-old, or now we're in 2024, an 11-year-old game. I would love to see that. I would just like that game to play like a modern video game does, with some of the quality of life things, you know, weapon wheels, better vehicle handling, even the handling of the character of Nico, you know, he's a little stiff. I think it would be really cool to see like a full-blown remaster or remake, preferably a remake, but that's not really Rockstar's thing. You know, they would probably outsource that. You know, they outsource the stuff for those versions of the PS2 trilogy that came out was it last year or the year before, and that was horribly received, and they were very poor quality. So I don't know, maybe I don't trust them enough to get it done, but yeah. I was really surprised that just GTA 4 kind of just pulled me back in, and I'm like, you know, I have a very busy schedule this week, but it's like I'm gonna find some time to play some more GTA 4 this week. It's like, you know, kind of odd because we still have another week to go. It's not until the 18th that stuff starts coming out for 2024 with Prince of Persia and the new Turnip Boy. But yeah, this coming week is like, I'm going to play some more GTA 4. I'll play some more Baldur's Gate 3. And I actually, because I never got around to playing Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion, I actually have it sitting on my desktop. I have not fired it up yet. I want to play that before the new one comes out to have a little bit of frame of reference to it. But yeah, that's going to wrap things up for the games, I guess. And then, hang on. Yes, you have something to say?
You spend an awful lot of time throwing women in a river when you're playing this game. You doing okay there, buddy?
Yeah, I didn't do any of that while playing the game. That's what you were doing when you were playing the game when I put the controller down to go get a bottle of water. You were acting out, working through some stuff. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, we'll be back in just a moment with the news. All right, we are back with the news, and we are going to kick things off with Square Enix's continued fascination with AI and oddly still the blockchain. Honestly, president of Square Enix, Takeshi Kiryu, find you a man that loves you as much as this man loves the blockchain still. I think even the tech bros have given up on the blockchain, but he is quadrupling down on this stuff. So Kiryu, who has been in the position of president at the company for less than a year, it was last summer when he got the position, kind of made some comments and statements and all that stuff. And there's a really good write-up of all of it over at VGC from Andy Robinson. So we're going to be using his article here and paraphrasing some stuff. Sorry, my dog just showed up and demands pets. Let's see if we can just scroll down with one hand here. All right. So he put a letter out. It says, here's the quote from it. "We also intend to be aggressive in applying AI and other cutting-edge technologies to both our content development and our publishing functions. In the short term, our goal will be to enhance our development productivity and achieve greater sophistication in our marketing efforts. In the long term, we hope to leverage those technologies to create new forms of content for consumers, as we believe the technological innovation represents business opportunities." And then specifically about AI, he says, "I believe that generative AI has the potential not only to reshape what we create, but also to fundamentally change the processes by which we create, including programming." So they've been talking about this for a little while. The previous president before him, Yosuke Matsuda, was like the first person to really kind of double down on the blockchain stuff. And Kiryu's letter that came out talking about all this continues to support that. And then they kind of tie in, Andy Robinson ties in some comments that Xbox made going off of the deal that they made with InWorld last year, a company that they are working with to build AI dialogue and narrative tools at scale. Their chief financial officer over at Xbox, Tim Stewart, said, on the developer side, you think about the millions and millions of dollars in a game spent on localization, script, how you think about playing, moving from point A to point B. You have non-player characters having dialogue. AI could take care of all of that. You now say, I need the player to get from A to B, and instead of having to write thousands of lines of scripting or code, you just have the AI get you from A to B. Things like localization and putting things in new languages. When we think about game testing, a million AI bots can run through a level of Minecraft and find where players get stuck, where they spend money, how they think about the level. So this is, pun intended, game-changing for the developer. So, AI is a really tricky subject with stuff because, there's a lot of negative stuff about AI out there, and some of it is completely rightfully deserved. They found evidence in multiple generative AI scripts that are essentially used for generating animated video or artwork. We're stealing from artists essentially because just all this information was pumped into it, and obviously that's not good. You should be getting consent and compensation. Some type of something for having your work be part of what's training this AI. But anybody that's of the opinion that AI in general is bad for video games just isn't educated enough on the subject. And I certainly don't consider myself educated enough on AI. I'm certainly more into it than I thought I was going to be. I'm not typically one that kind of jumps onto these tech trends and stuff like that. I never did anything with crypto. I never did anything with NFTs or anything like that. But AI stuff, because it's a tool, it's a service. I was very curious about it. And I remember getting into the ChatGPT beta or alpha or whatever it is, and really messing around with it and finding some interesting uses for it. I have yet to find any text-based AI that is useful for me, because if I'm writing, let's say, scripts for the animated videos that I do, I can't have it do that because it can't replicate my sense of humor, my style of writing, all of that stuff. Like, that's never going to work. I tried using it to generate some stuff for this show, but it was just so bad and so poorly written that I was just like, oh God, like, this is terrible. Like, I wanted it to try and maybe write some of the jokes, like the stuff that I feed in for the hey Christian, cover your ears. The stuff I feed into him. I wanted to see if it could do that, and it was just so terrible that I just never bothered. But that being said, I am using AI quite a bit. I use a shitload of AI stuff to do the shorts that I make, to do the animated videos now, to do just graphical stuff for this show, for pretty much everything you see on this channel for the most part, with the exception of a handful of things. I'm really enjoying it. I pay for a subscription to a generative AI service so I can get stuff made without having to wait like a queue or anything like that, to get higher quality results and all that kind of stuff. And I really am enjoying it. And it's not so much that it's helping me speed things up. In a way, it is. I would say with the next animated video that you're going to see, I would say it probably saved a couple hours worth of work with some of the AI stuff that I did. And absolutely, I would say that it was. But I'm not running anything. Like, I know there's like some AI, like video editing stuff. I'm not doing anything like that. Maybe some point in time I'll go further with it and try and do some AI video stuff instead of just image. I don't know enough about that side of things to really get it up and running. I've seen tutorials, so I know like how to do it if I needed to do it, but I haven't necessarily found like a solid use case for doing it yet. So maybe somewhere down the line. But when it comes to video games, there was the big outcry when Ubisoft last year announced that they were going to be doing some stuff with AI for writing and also recording dialogue. And that game that just came out, The Finals, uses AI voices generated voices for some of its announcer stuff. And I get it. I think it's a very naive opinion to say that, like, oh, by doing what Ubisoft wants to do, like, that's killing jobs. That's not killing jobs. That's freeing people up. Like, writing incidental throwaway dialogue that you hear in the background, like chatter in a restaurant, or perhaps just conversations you're overhearing while your character's running full speed past them. Outsourcing that stuff to AI instead of having a person sit down and type it all out, like, absolutely, man, that's going to save a lot of money, especially if you're like a small team and you need to do some of that stuff. That would save you a ton of man hours, and you can focus it on things that AI necessarily can't do for you. So I think it is a very naive opinion to say that AI is just automatically, as a broad stroke umbrella statement, bad for video games. Now, are there going to be companies that absolutely take advantage of this and use it to replace people's jobs? 100%. That's going to happen no matter what. And those games will lack in quality because of it. You will be able to tell very easily that this is not made by human hands. They're just not going to get it past it. It's not that good yet. It's good, but it's not that good. And you remember stuff like ChatGPT, it only has, like, what's the cutoff? It's like a few years ago, right? So it doesn't even have, like, references that have happened over the past couple of years and things in it. It's been a few months since I've messed around with ChatGPT, so I don't know if it's been updated or not. But I think it was like, what was it like? It was like, remember we can't talk about anything like before 2019 or something like that. I can't remember exactly what the cutoff was. But yeah, I don't know quite what Square Enix plan is. I think if it's going to be, mostly doing to freeing up some tedious activities for the people that work there, I think that's for the best. Freeing up time by doing, background dialogue, or even they talk about some like lip sync stuff. Like, that's not killing somebody's job. That just allows them to do better at a job that's going to matter more. Maybe they are able to spend more time in the creative process instead of being on such a crunch, because, it's like, well, I need to come up with the art for this character and then also lip sync it. So I need to kind of split my time 50-50, but if I can have AI do the lip sync, then I can spend 90% of the time in the creative process and come up with maybe potentially a better idea and not feel so rushed. I think there's a positive that can be had there, but still too soon to tell, too early to see how all this is going to play out. But, before you form just like a snap judgment on this stuff, take a little bit of time. There's some really well-made videos that you can find on YouTube that explain more about stuff like ChatGPT, Stable Diffusion, all that kind of stuff. I use DID for a lot of stuff, which that might just be an offshoot of Stable Diffusion. I'm not quite sure. And there's some really interesting things out there, and do a little research. You might find that it's maybe a little bit more exciting and less detrimental that you may have initially thought it was going to be.
AI is trash, and anyone that uses it should be shot in the street.
Fair enough. All right. Next up, let's talk something a little bit more positive, and that is my most anticipated game, Star Wars Outlaws. Little bit of an update. This was kind of a really back and forth kind of thing. So no one really knew when Star Wars Outlaws was coming out. There was the statement that came out that said, hey, this game is further along than most people realize, leading people to believe at one point, some people thought it was coming out last year. I thought it was coming out this year. I would have assumed, judging by that statement and the way the game looked when they presented it at both the Ubisoft Forward event last year and the Xbox showcase where they showed the trailers, I figured maybe a spring release this year, but it looks like it's probably going to be at the end of this year. But now it's going back and forth, because there was a post made by IGN that was coming out in 2024, and then it was updated to say that it's coming out late 2024. And then VGC says that they were contacted by Ubisoft to remove the late 2024 release window and just put 2024. So that leads you to believe, like, is it actually going to come out this year, or is this them kind of preparing everybody by saying, like, hey, it's going to be some point this year, but maybe don't be surprised if we delay it to 2025. So I personally, I really hope that it comes out this year. You know, it's going to be interesting to see how they talk about the game going forward. If we hear absolutely nothing between now and Summer Games Fest, Ubisoft Forward in June, I would say that the chances of it coming out in 2024 are probably lowered. But it also could be that they are just playing it safe, and then they will, you know, kind of just rocket a big marketing campaign and launch in the summer, saying like, hey, it's coming out in September or October or whatever it may be. They could also pull what they did with Avatar last year. Avatar came out in December. It was a super late release. It was the last like big AAA release of the year. You know, you would think that with a property like Star Wars, they wouldn't want to bury it at the end of the year when so many publications have already locked in their stuff for the Game of the Year. You know, it'd be past the deadline for the Game Awards, like all that kind of stuff. You would think that they would probably want to have it out in time to be included in all that stuff. So I would say, you know, October, if it's coming out this year, it'd be like October, November. But at least they are acknowledging that people are talking about it by correcting them, saying like, you know, please don't say late 2024, but it is still coming out in 2024. Like, I guess maybe that's like a little bit of hope. You know, we'll see, but you know, honestly, kind of who knows on that one. But it's, you know, nice to get a little bit of an update. I am very much looking forward to it. We're gonna touch upon a couple of real quick things. Just like very short stories because there's not a lot of meat on the bone there before we get to the last couple of things. Over this weekend were the Creative Arts Emmys. So the Emmys, you know, essentially the Oscars for television. Most of these are very technical awards like best set design, you know, costuming, all that kind of stuff. But they had a couple of acting awards mixed in there, which I was kind of really surprised about. And the reason why I bring this up is because The Last of Us television show has been cleaning up. The biggest one of note is that Nick Offerman won for Outstanding Guest Actor in a Drama Series for his portrayal of Bill in the third episode, Left Behind, which to me personally is one of the greatest episodes of television I've ever seen in my life. It was absolutely unbelievable. They also won a bunch of technical awards, including Outstanding Prosthetic Makeup, Outstanding Special Visual Effects in a Season or Movie, Outstanding Main Title Design, Outstanding Sound Editing for a Comedy or Drama, Outstanding Sound Mixing for a Comedy or Drama, and Outstanding Picture Editing for a Drama Series. And there's still more awards to go because the Emmys proper this coming weekend, I believe. And that's where like Pedro Pascal is nominated for Best Actor and it's nominated for Best Drama and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I just kind of want to highlight that real quick. Nick Offerman's performance was absolutely amazing and a very deserving win. And real quick before we move on to the next kind of larger story, there was a rumor going around that Microsoft is bringing an acclaimed Xbox game to a multi-platform setup. So essentially saying a game that was previously exclusive will be going multi-platform. And they said that this game was reportedly in the Game of the Year conversation. Everybody is saying that it pretty much leads to it being Hi-Fi Rush. I think that makes sense. That's a game that was really well received. But by having that like immediate launch where it came out, you know, that night, it being a smaller scale game and it just kind of got swallowed up in 2023, a year of so many big releases, I think that makes sense for it to go out onto like the Switch, PS5, you know, whatever it may be. So do not be surprised if you see like an official announcement coming soon that Hi-Fi Rush will be releasing on other platforms. So next up, it seems like this is kind of a larger leak. Maybe this was known, but there's going to be a new game in the Horizon franchise right now, going under the code name Skyline, and it's going to be an actual MMO. So these are the kind of bullet points. Says that the game is confirmed to be in development. It's being made by NC Soft, not Guerrilla. There was a job listing on LinkedIn, and the logo for the game is the identical, like, lettering, you wouldn't say font, but typeface, kind of design as Horizon that says Skyline. It says it's being developed under the codename Project Skyline, with the initial codename being Project H, for PC and mobile. Unreal Engine 5, so very different than the way Horizon plays. Expected to come out either in 2024 or 2025. It's being developed in Sunggu Lee's Lineage IP division, led by Hong Young Choi, who previously was head of Lineage W development. I am not familiar with any of that, so forgive me. Project started in 2021. Around 140 people have been working on it as recently as the fall of last year. And they have purchased a domain for something called Land of Salvation. So it's possible that the game will not be called like Horizon Skyline, but maybe Horizon Land of Salvation, something to that effect. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff going around on X about this, the job listings and stuff. So, I mean, it seems to be pretty legit. If you look at like the comments on a lot of the posts and people talking about it, and that this is just not really welcomed, I guess. I mean, I think launching an MMO in 2024 is like, that's gonna be like such a difficult thing to do, because people that are still playing MMOs, and I guess even if you want to loop some of the live service stuff like Destiny into it, all those player bases have gone down. We've seen multiple kind of higher profile MMOs launch and then quickly die over the past decade. And to a lesser degree, just not even in a traditional MMO, but just live service games in general that have launched and died a swift death. I don't think that Horizon has enough cachet to really bring people in. It is a console exclusive, so if you don't own a PlayStation and have never played it, the original at this point is out on PC, but it might be difficult to draw people in. But this could also be Sony looking at maybe targeting an entirely different audience by having a mobile thing. Maybe this is more trying to be like, yes, you can play this MMO on your PC, just like you can with like the Hoyosoft stuff, like Honkai Star Rail, and all that. You could play it on your PlayStation, you could play it on your PC, but you could also play it on your phone. Maybe they're trying to do that, and this is just really them trying to capitalize on the mobile market and really kind of like root this game into Japan, root this game into China, maybe South Korea. I'm not sure how active they are with phone-based MMOs or online type stuff. I don't know if this is like a big deal in the West. Maybe you get enough people that really like Horizon. There's obviously a huge Horizon fan base. I personally just don't like the way those games play. I think the storytelling is really cool what they do. I think the art direction is absolutely amazing. Like the presentation, all that stuff is truly mind-blowing. It's really, really good stuff. I just hate the way those games play. I've played both of them. Put some hours into both of them, but just couldn't do it. I just don't like the way the characters control. I don't like their stealth mechanics. I just don't like the way the game moves and feels. I don't like it's very much like a Ubisoft open world game where it's just like vomit of items on a map, or like landmarks and waypoints on a map. It's just kind of not my thing. But I could see a world where this catches on a little bit. At least, we know that Sony is really doubling down on a lot of this live service stuff. It's something like, I wish I could remember the exact number, but it's something crazy like a dozen live service games are currently in development at Sony. Some of which just got delayed internally, like Marathon over at Bungie just got delayed kind of very quietly at the end of last year. They kind of buried it. So I don't know. I know that they really want to do it. They really want to capitalize on that market because I think they need to bring in some of that money, considering that their main franchises are these single player, not online games that aren't microtransaction to death. It's not like Spider-Man's got 9 million paid DLCs or God of War has 9 million paid DLCs. I mean, they just did that DLC for God of War Ragnarok and it was free. So, they're not even charging for that stuff. So I think that they're just trying to find a way to offset that income. And this is kind of their methodology behind it. So we'll see what happens. But, if it's been being worked on for a few years now, potentially a state of play this year or a Sony showcase around summertime could officially announce it and just say like, hey, we're working on this. We'll have more details next year or something like that. Just try and get people excited because I don't know how the last Horizon ended. I want to say that I heard on one of the gaming podcasts I listened to, they said it ended on a cliffhanger to set up a third game. I would assume that that's probably what Guerrilla is working on. I don't know if they're going to go back to the well with Killzone or try and do a brand new IP. I'd like to see them do something different, but at the same time, if that's what Sony wants, they are a Sony-owned studio. They can probably dictate that stuff. So I guess it's just wait and see. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I would be putting all my money into or at least any money into the MMO bucket this year. But I don't know. Sony does strange things sometimes. All right, our final story this week is video game related in a way. Another video game movie is getting some news. The Minecraft movie set to come out in 2025 has found its Steve. I believe Steve, I've spent very little time on Minecraft. I believe Steve is the character that you just play as in that game, I think. He's going to be played by Jack Black. Kind of interesting. I believe this is a live action movie. So it is a little surprising that it's going to be a man in Jack Black's got to be in his 50s, right? Yeah, he's 54, but hey, I like Jack Black. So he is going to be in the movie, and then it sounds like that Jason Momoa is still attached. That was like the big announcement was Jason Momoa was going to be in the movie. It said playing the main character, but I don't know if is he going to be the main character or is this Jack Black Steve going to be the main character? I tried looking up to see if now that Jack Black is in, Jason Momoa is out, like he's replacing him. But a lot of the articles, like the headlines say Jack Black joining Jason Momoa in Minecraft movie. So maybe Jack Black won't be the main character. Maybe they'll create a brand new character for the Minecraft movie and they'll just kind of bring in characters that people know to kind of interact along with them. They are filming it in New Zealand. No one knows who the current writers are. This project has bounced around from director to writer all over the place. Different people have been attached to starring in it. At one point, it was supposed to be like Rob McElhenney was going to be in it, but he's in charge of soccer now, so he probably doesn't have the time. There are a bunch of other actors that are announced for it. I am not familiar with any of them except for Danielle Brooks. She was in Orange is the New Black. Emma Myers, I'm not familiar with her. Sebastian Eugene Hansen, not familiar with them either. It's interesting because this is like not the first video game movie that Jack Black is attached to now because he is in the Borderlands movie and no one knows if that thing like even exists. We heard that there was like reshoots last year or maybe the year before. And the game, or not the game, but the movie is supposed to be out. It was supposed to be out by now. Who knows what's happening with that in a world where we have seen production companies film whole movies and then just choose not to release them. I don't know. I guess I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if there's like a completely in the can Borderlands movie that just like never sees the light of day. I think there's like some fairly big names attached to that besides Jack Black. Like I think like Halle Berry was involved in that. But yeah, I don't know. With a live action Minecraft movie, I would hope that they do some cool stuff to blend like the voxel or pixel style artwork of Minecraft with live action. I think they could make this like a really visually interesting movie, especially being in like a forest or jungle type setting with, mountains and water and lava and all these, crazy environments existing all within each other. They can make a very visually interesting movie. And I like, like I said, I like Jack Black. I like Jason Momoa. I'm curious to see what they would do. It's not a movie that I'm going to run out and see in theaters, but I would certainly rent it, when it came out and give it a watch. But yeah, we'll see on that one. But yeah, I mean, it's Jack Black's riding high. He's going to be the king of video game movies because even though I didn't think I thought he was fine as Bowser, I didn't think he was like the star of that movie by any stretch. Or like I don't think he necessarily had the best performance. I guess he maybe had the most memorable performance. I kind of liked. I really did like Chris Pratt as Mario. I thought Charlie did a very good job as Luigi, but it was that little star guy, that suicidal, depressive star guy was definitely the highlight of that movie for me. But I don't know, maybe the Minecraft movie will come out and be this just like overwhelming juggernaut. Because you know, there's still new children all the time joining the world of Minecraft, and you have all the people that are now college aged or in their 30s or whatever, people that play with their kids. Like, it's going to appeal to like a super wide audience. And if the Mario movie could make $1 billion, you would have to imagine that Minecraft could do the same. You know, there's certainly more brand recognition with Nintendo and Mario, but Minecraft is no slouch. I mean, it's a mostly household name at this point. I mean, it's hard to walk into a Walmart or a Target and not see some type of Minecraft related merchandise on the shelves, you know, to this day. It's certainly not at the height of its popularity that it once was, but it's, you know, it's certainly not disappeared by any stretch. So yeah, I think it has the potential to be a really gigantic, you know, movie for, I don't know, did it say who is making it? I didn't see who is making it. Let's see here. What's it say? Warner Brothers is doing it. Okay, so yeah, Warner Brothers. All right, yeah, why not? Oh, at one point the the director of Napoleon Dynamite is making it. I missed that in the story. Okay. All right, what else did he do besides Napoleon Dynamite? Napoleon Dynamite's such a bizarre fucking movie. What else did he do? He was the executive producer of the American Gladiators documentary on Netflix. All right. He's the producer on Righteous Gemstones. He's doing a lot of producing work. Let's see. Directing work. Oh, he directed the American Gladiators documentary. Okay, that makes a little bit more sense. I am not familiar with these things. Yeah, he did Napoleon Dynamite. I knew he did Nacho Libre. I am not familiar with these other movies that he did. Some of these are television shows that I've heard of, but yeah, okay, I guess maybe this is like his return to film, I guess. So yeah, hopefully it works out for him.
Why on earth would anyone want to go see a Minecraft movie? They only cast Jason Momoa so he can take his shirt off and the dads in the audience can have a little eye candy before they have to return home to a family who has long since discarded them.
Cool. Jason Momoa is eye candy. I do agree with you on that. All right, so before we get out of here, a couple of channel things. So we had a bunch of short scope over the past couple of weeks. We had the Buckshot Roulette video last week. As far as what's going on, and also the Dragon's Lair. The Dragon's Lair 1 and 2 Full Motion Sickness is the most viewed episode of Full Motion Sickness, so thank you for checking that out. This is what I wanted to talk about. I knew there was something I wanted to talk about. So I had mentioned, if you watched the 2024 year in preview episode, last week's podcast, you know, I did a little bit of a channel update for the year for 2024, some goals and things I wanted to do. I mentioned that Full Motion Sickness is probably going to come to an end in 2024, just because it is a finite amount of material to cover. It's not infinite. And I thought it was going to probably come to an end sooner rather than later, but I really just kind of didn't realize the rabbit hole of all this animated FMV stuff that I could cover. So I ended up making a big list of games that I want to cover that are of a length that I think would be okay. There are a couple that are like 2 hours long, an hour and a half. Those might get tricky. You know, we'll see on those. But there are more games out there that I realized that I could cover. So I think Full Motion Sickness, like, yes, it is eventually going to end, but I think for this year it's going to be alive and well, and I definitely want to do another one sooner rather than later. We'll probably just do Space Ace next. It's super short, and there is no sequel like with Dragon's Lair, but it's made by Don Bluth, and so it's, you know, got a lot of similarities to it from an animation perspective. So that'll probably be the next one, and then we'll just keep digging into this stuff. And yeah, I was really happy with the way that episode came out, despite having to redo the whole thing over again. I was able to kind of come up with some new talking points and things. And yeah, so I think it'll be a good year for that show. And then also the next animated video, the first video game sludge video of 2024, is coming along pretty well. Actually, in the background right now, I actually just finished I was having my AI process the animation for the final part of that video. So we are getting down to it. I have an incredibly busy week coming up this week, so I don't know how much work I will actually get done on it until maybe next weekend. But I would say it's definitely on track to still come out before the end of the month. But I just don't want to, maybe the week of the 22nd, or it might be the goal, or maybe we just have to get it out the week of the 29th and have it out before the end of the month, which is that Wednesday. But it will be out, barring any like crazy thing that happens. It will be out before the end of January. I posted a preview like sample of what it looks like in the community channel or community tab if you want to take a look at that. But yeah, other than that, that's going to wrap things up. And Christian, anything you want to say before we get out of here?
Watching you shovel all that snow we got over the weekend was absolutely hilarious. You and your little plastic shovel acting like you're a man, pushing all this white powder around. Let me tell you something about the best way to get rid of white powder.
Yeah, I'm definitely familiar with you and your white powder. Yeah, we got like 8 inches of snow, and my snowblower doesn't work, so I have to shovel, and it's super fun. But thankfully, my truck just blasts right through it, so I don't have to worry about necessarily shoveling myself out of the driveway. I like to make a path for the mailman. I feel like that is the least I could do, and obviously clear my steps off and all that, but I don't necessarily have to do the whole driveway because I can just drive right through it. But yes, lots of fun. Very fun. But yeah, that's going to do it for me, everybody, and we'll see you again next week.